Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of Floss Weekly. This week, Guillermo Amaral joins me. We're going to talk about the Omegaverse. It's not a real universe, it's a simulated universe. Looks like a lot of fun. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Guillermo Amaral. Episode 281, recorded January 29th, 2014. Omegaverse. It's time for Floss Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I am your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at Stonehenge.com, bringing you each week, or as often as I can, actually getting close to each week again one more time, the movers, the shakers, the big projects, the little projects, the projects you may be using every day and not know it, the projects you might not have ever heard of, the whole variety. I love bringing these shows to you because I get to find out a bunch of stuff myself. It's all been very fun. Well, we have a very special co-host today. He was formerly on the show back in July of 2010 as a guest. He's been pestering me to come back and be a co-host from time to time, so I thought, let's bring him on. This is Guillermo Amaral. Welcome back to the show. Presuming you passed your audition this week, which is probably no sweat at all, we'll have you back as part of our rotating panel co-hosts. And so thank you for volunteering to be part of the stable. Very cool. Very cool. Well, the show's not about, oh, and where are you speaking to us from? Awesome. Awesome. Yes, the real Tijuana, the one with the donkey show and everything. Yes, exactly. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. Okay. And I'm, of course, coming to you guys from the ZipRecruiter office in downtown Los Angeles. Not downtown, downtown Santa Monica. Sorry, wrong suburb. That's crazy. Anyway, so our host today, our show today, our project today is the Omega, how to describe, Omega Universe Simulator. It's really kind of automatic, really kind of cool. So, we have a couple of guests in to talk about this show. Talk about the show. No, they're not going to talk about the show. I'm talking about the show. They're going to talk about the project. We have, let's first, so we got, we'll bring the hosts, we'll bring the guests on anytime soon. Sorry, I've been a little bit distracted this morning. So let's go ahead and bring on our guests. Let's bring first on Mo Morsi. Mo Morsi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and where are you speaking to us from?
I'm speaking to you from Liverpool, New York, right outside of Syracuse, New York, which is the middle of the tundra right now.
Yes, I've heard some very cold temperatures from over there. Here it's it's a chilly 65 here in Santa Monica. So, I almost have to bundle up at that point. It's very scary there. And we also have on the show, Nico Sadantragno. I hope I pronounced that right. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, you pronounced it almost right. It's Nicolas Satraño, but that's okay.
Satraño. Closer to that, yes. And where are you speaking to us from?
From Buenos Aires, Argentina, where it's summer, so it's pretty warm here. About 35 degrees, but Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So maybe we should do the math.
Something like that. I was just in Buenos Aires about 5 weeks ago? Yeah, I finished a cruise there, and so I saw a tango show. Those are really amazing. So, but anyway, that show's not about my travels. It's about what we have to talk about as a project. So let's go back to Mo for a second here, and Mo, give us a 30,000-foot view. What is Omega, the Omega Universe Simulator, or whatever you guys call it?
Sure. Well, this project allows you to travel across the universe, if you will. Omega is a universe simulator. Essentially, it allows a user to set up the entities that you would associate with the universe, the galaxies, stars, planets, and so on and so forth. Those entities are associated with locations, which have coordinates and movement strategies, which will periodically update those entities. And in addition to that, the administrator can set up ships and stations and player-controlled entities, as well as customizable series of workflows, which to kind of manipulate and to alter the universe at runtime. Now, the universe is the project implements a client-server protocol. So the universe is actually running on its own instance, independently of the clients which access that. The underlying standard which drives the project is json-rpc, which is a remote procedural call protocol like XML-RPC or SOAP. But the nice thing is it allows the client to communicate with the server over any transport. Basically, this means that the client can issue requests over TCP/IP, the internet, over HTTP, over the web, over WebSockets, over AMQP, so on and so forth, thus allowing the most clients running on the most platforms to access the universe in a manner they see fit. Omega has a lot of things. It has a full role-based access control system. It defines many helper macros so that you can really richly and descriptively describe your universe and the entities in it. So, anything that you might want a universe for, whether it's educational tools or gaming purposes or simulations, Omega can be used for, and it can be very easily extendable due to the underlying nature of the protocols.
So the architecture is basically you've got some sort of physics simulator, or is it doing anything physical at all? Is it actually computing gravity and things, or is it just simply computing positions?
So that's on the to-do list. That's there's a very big backlog. The motel subsystem, which is movable objects, object tracking encompassing locations. Each kind of component, each subset of major functionality in Omega is broken into isolated subsystems. Well, that's responsible for taking locations, and those locations which are maybe associated with planets or associated with ships or whatnot, and updating those according to movement strategies, parameterized movement strategies, which the user registers ahead of time. So right now there's, simple physics that move planets according to Kepler's laws and so on and so forth. But things like physics that for linear movements and to follow other locations and so on and so forth. But it can be easily extended and interfaced with the Open Dynamics engine, with any number of frameworks on the back end. Omega itself is kind of lightweight. It's very modular, and all sorts of systems can plug and play with it.
So how did this get started? What was the thing that you must have had like too much time on your hands or had a problem that you really needed to solve with this? How did this get started?
I've always been a big sci-fi fan since I was very young. I've always been a big tech geek, so the two kind of just collided. And, I didn't see anything like this, and especially built on the technologies that it's built on. So the core server is written in Ruby. It's based on Event Machine, which is a high performance event loop. If you're familiar with the Twisted framework in Python, or other languages have similar libraries which implement this design pattern. And then, like I said, on top of Event Machine, there is a json-rpc interface, which we build all the Omega subsystems on top of. And then for the client's purposes, there's a couple of different clients. There is a WebGL client where JavaScript uses WebSockets to communicate with the server and render components with WebGL. So, these technologies are very new and very, evolving, and but they are also the technologies of the future. These things, the applications which these technologies can be applied to are growing by the day. So, not only that, I'm the type of person that, if something needs to be done, I'll just jump on in and do it and play around with it. So it's really been a labor of love. It's just been, whenever I can. And since it was pretty much after college, I had some spare time. So I just started hacking on it, and it's where it's at today.
Very cool. Hey, so we know how Mo got started with it, but Nico, how did you get started with this project?
Well, I always liked participating in free software projects, and Mo was my mentor in a contest from Google called Google Coding, in which I participated for the Fedora project. And he taught me so many things about development, and he was caring about me learning how to program the right way. That when I learned he had this project, I thought, hey, I can participate on that. I can learn from him. So that's how I started development for the Omegaverse project. That's it, basically.
And so you're obviously a bit of ways away from Mo. How do you coordinate? How do you, especially since this is awfully visual? How do you work together to make the things visually work?
Well, we use IRC a lot to communicate on real time, and we also have our project hosted on the Git platform. So the code sharing is very easy thanks to Git, and we can work on different parts of the project thanks to it being so modular that we won't interfere with each other. And if we have, an idea or something that we want to communicate to the other one while we're working at it, we use IRC, emails, standard mediums of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. The GitHub is really a great platform, Git in general, for sharing code, and for those who are familiar with it, you can, if you have an idea or something, you can spin off a topic branch, or kind of easily push code and then kind of refactor and rebase and remerge that in. We have a mailing list. A mailing list / forum is hosted on Google Groups. If you go to the Omegaverse Google group, you'll find that. If you go to omegaverse.info, you'll find a hosted live demo. Feel free to check that out. Just kind of click around. It's read-only right now. Like I said, the Omega implements a full role-based access control system, so an admin can tailor specific functionality and can lock down specific entities however they want to ahead of time or whatnot. So that instance is just kind of read-only, but instances can be linked up, so you can have a whole simulation, whole network of these simulations running over the internet. It's really the universe is open as far as possibilities.
Hey Mo, so I have a quick question. Before you actually connected or got into the actual connection here, we were talking where the name Omega came from for your project. So I'm guessing you have the you have more experience with the project before, right? Than Nico would.
Yeah, I mean, I have been working on this project since in various forms since 2008. Like I said, after college, I was just kind of looking around. It's inspired by. I don't want to kind of. Many projects don't have a focus and don't have a target. So, and then they kind of either feature bloat or they kind of taper off. So one of the main focuses and drives that I have for working on this project is to create a really cool space sim that can scale across the internet, like I said, and that's free and that's open. People can write clients that interface with Omega and use them and license them under whatever. Omega is licensed under the AGPL, which will ensure that the core components will always remain free. But I'm no open source sealet, but it really, I feel, is appropriate for this situation. But anyways, getting back to the topic at hand, I started Omega in 2008 and through different forms. And the name, Omega has many different connotations. They, from the alpha and the omega to, Omega as far as a state in a software project. So I just kind of felt the name fit. And Omegaverse was kind of an extension of that as far as a name to link a lot of these simulations together. But, what's in a name? So, what?
Oh, damn. I'm sorry. Yeah. I hope that had anything to do with the Omega point. That the whole reality would be, inside the simulation itself.
Maybe it's running on Omega. No. I hadn't heard about it. I've read up on the topic before, and it's it's an interesting topic. But that one particular theory I hadn't heard before.
So So we know your project works, with a multiple computing, I'm guessing. Could you explain how well it'll scale if somebody, plans to maybe expand your universe?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, the core protocol is json-rpc. The library which we use, the json-rpc library, is called RJR, Ruby JSON-RPC. And essentially, JSON is a very extensible string format. It's used for many other purposes, obviously not just this. One of the kind of main applications of JSON-RPC, it's very new, but the Bitcoin the biggest Bitcoin wallet has a JSON-RPC interface that happens to be JSON-RPC over HTTP, but it's JSON-RPC nonetheless. So because RJR doesn't limit the user from which transport they use, and nor does Omega, RJR facilitates provides metadata to the application which relies on it to say which transport the request came in on, as well as a slew of other metadata to those method handlers so that they can use in their operations. Because RJR doesn't restrict that, anyone can integrate that into whichever system. So if they have for example, AMQP is a very fault-tolerant, high-reliability messaging protocol that RJR has a transport will accept JSON-RPC messages over. So if anyone has an existing AMQP setup, some infrastructure dedicated to that, they could easily integrate this in. And it really, user can customize and mix and match, and simulations can communicate with each other in a node-to-node, peer-to-peer fashion. So this really should be able to scale quite well. We have a couple simulations running. We haven't done anything major or exhaustive, but if people that are listening are interested in this type of thing, feel free to give me an email, shoot me an email. I would love to work with people and to help people kind of realize their artistic, their technical visions, and make something really cool. Whereas me and Nico have been working together in New York and Argentina. We can scale that outwards to pretty much everywhere.
So how big is the project right now? Is it just you two?
There's a few of us involved. We're the primary developers. My friend Nightish has been contributing as far as packaging up components to RPMs. He's been doing an awesome job on that. We would love for Debs, or if some people come by. It has 40 stars in GitHub. I don't know what that means, but various people have expressed their support. Tossed around ideas. We've I've tossed a couple patches up. There's a really cool 3.js based particle engine, a particle emitter on GitHub. It's called Shader Particle Engine. If you just search for that, I'm sure it'll turn up on GitHub. That I did viral effect with, and I tossed their way, and they were kind of happy. So it's just been kind of, like I said before, a labor of love and just having fun with it. And as people are interested, I've tried to tailor if there's something that they need or they're interested in, try to kind of help realize that and to incorporate that into the project.
So let's say if I have an idea for a universe, right? Maybe not completely like the Star Trek or Star Wars universe, but maybe similar to that. How would I get into creating my own?
Like that meme, why not both? You could do a universe with any sci-fi fandom, massive battles on any scale, break down to the planets. It's the universe is the limit. So if you go to the project, there is an examples directory, and that contains a bunch of scripts which are used to set up many different simulations of many different varieties. So there, in the universes directory, there's just a bunch of universes that contain galaxies and solar systems and resources and various events which populate asteroids with resources and whatnot. And then there's various scripts which run entities in those universes according to various algorithms. So depending on what you want to do with the ships and with the actors, you can implement different scripts which uses the Omega DSL. And a DSL is a domain-specific language, it's often seen in the Ruby world, but it's seen in many other languages, and many other platforms have DSLs. And it's a language specific to the domain of the software that you're interfacing with. So the Omega provides a DSL which describes methods to easily set up your universe, to set up galaxies, to set up and control ships, and so on and so forth. So you can write really easily maintainable, really easily testable scripts which can easily reproduce a universe very quickly and efficiently over whichever transport you want, over whichever JSON-rpc transport. So you would essentially just take one of these scripts, adapt it to your needs, set up your universe, and then you would host it somewhere. The main universe, the main server process is just simply one command that you run. And then if you want to put on the web interface, the web view onto that, you would build the website, which there's a command to do so in the project. So, if there's an existing universe that you can leverage, all you have to do is run the script, and it will create your entities on it. It will run your entities, and so on and so forth. You could have multiple clients running different bots, connecting as different users, doing all sorts of simulations, whether for educational or technical purposes, whether for fun, for gaming purposes, whether for cryptographic or stenography purposes, whether for economic purposes. Economics is the study of scarce resources, and when you control a universe, you control the scarcity of resources in that universe. So it definitely has a lot of applications which you can easily set up through the interface.
A question from the chat. TechDino wanted to know if you could have nested algorithms for each planet.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by nested algorithms, but there shouldn't be any reason why you can't tie specific functionality to specific entities. So Omega as a whole consists of several subsystems. Each subsystem is independent, and each subsystem is geared towards managing the entities in that subsystem. So if you want to tie, extend the Cosmos subsystem to tie functionality to define additional functionality on planets, and to, specific planets have specific cities that you interact with the specific planets, which have specific properties in certain ways. You are more than able to do that very easily. If you want to add a whole nother subsystem, which kind of implements a whole nother slew of functionality, you can easily do that. And that subsystem can depend on the others. For example, it can make use of the location tracking. It can make use of the user tracking or the user management, and so on and so forth, very easily. Subsystems are isolated through json-rpc, albeit a very highly optimized local JSON-rpc interface, but it's that ensures data integrity and the boundary between subsystems, and so that you can have also that each subsystem only has access to the functionality it needs. You don't want subsystems it kind of be a free-for-all, and they can access all sorts of functionality. So the users that the subsystems use to communicate with other subsystems are highly locked down. So all of this kind of facilitates very easily expanding this, and not only that, using the kind of core mechanisms that Omega provides for event loops and for user commands and so on and so forth. This is already there, ready to be just ready to go. Just drop it into place to satisfy your need and do what you want.
So let me see if I get this right. If I want to work on your project, or let's say I want to maybe mod your game or simulator, right? Would I need to know Ruby, or can I just do it with JavaScript? On what side would I need to work on if I wanted to create a nice mod there?
Well, it depends on what you're modding and what you're looking to do. So if all you're interested in is providing another view or another interface on the universe, you really just need to know JavaScript, or not even that. Right now, there is a command line interface. If you look in the project, why don't I screen share real quick? I can show you a few of the interfaces. But to finish answering your question before I do that, to modify the web front end, you just suffices to know JavaScript. If you want to modify the core simulation, most of those components are written in Ruby. Ruby obviously has mechanisms which you can write components in C or in Java and whatnot. I personally haven't tested on JRuby, but I don't know any reason that it shouldn't work, and I would love to work with people to realize that if they're interested in that. I would also love to work with people to make it work on Mac. I know Mac and Ruby is big, and as far as I know, I mean, maybe some people have gotten it working and they haven't told me. And in any case, you're more than also welcome to develop additional clients. So if you have, if you want to develop, if someone wants to write an Android client or a native desktop client that maybe uses an Oculus Rift or so on and so forth, you can easily do this and interface it with the universe over JSON-rpc.
So you said a moment ago you're going to actually do a screen share, and I just wanted to clarify that this is mostly an audio show. Most of the listeners I have here are audio, but you might want to download the video for this particular one because I think it's going to be sort of interesting. I wanted to see the actual show in a show. This is the show. I want to see the program in progress. I want to see what the game looks like when you're playing with it. So can you go ahead and give us a little bit of demo?
Sure. Just know this is alpha software, so there may be bugs.
Yeah, as I was saying to you before we started the show, I was actually it looks like the last meal or whatever.
School of Athens in the Vatican Museum.
All right.
Very, very beautiful piece of art.
Yes.
So there's two instances running on the Omegaverse right now. Right now, there is Omegaverse.info, and I kind of asked that people go to this. I set up this second instance at the local hackerspace. That is the Syracuse Innovators Guild, sig315.org. Support your local hackerspace.
Nice.
They or makerspace, if you will, but they they provide resources, and so I set up a server there, and so the second node is running there for purposes of our demo. And
for those of you that aren't able to see this, what I'm looking at right now is a black screen. You're not missing much. So if there are any usability or human interface kind of people who are familiar with those topics or artists, love to work with you. What's the framework that's generating this? Is it some sort of Ruby thing, or what? I mean, how are you getting all this graphics and displaying the graphics to the browser here?
Sure. The core simulation is running. Let me click on a system so we have something interesting to look at while we talk.
Right. The black screen's not so fun.
Yeah. So the core server is Ruby based on JSON-rpc and Event Machine. The web front end is static pages, but that's generated from templates by a framework known as Middleman. And that takes templates. They can be a variety. We use Haml as our templating language. It'll take JavaScript, it'll take CSS and other web technologies, and will generate the static HTML from the that can just be dropped into a document route on the web server. So if you have a Apache HTTPD server or an Nginx server, that can be used to host the statically generated sites that are generated ahead of time. Now, the nice aspect about this is that the sites they don't require a kind of a complicated web application, or they're just static pages. So it's very high performance. It's it kind of just gets the user what they need very quickly. It can make use of all the caching mechanisms, which HTTP entails. Whenever an administrator pushes an update, they can just push it to the website, to the new document root, and the web browser will be responsible for downloading all that content. So that's traditionally been a really big problem in web servers, in the sense that in gaming frameworks in the past, especially open source gaming frameworks, in the sense that getting updates to users had been relatively hard. Well, that is no longer the case.
So what we're looking at here on the screen now, for those of you that aren't watching the video, is it looks like a giant sun, yellowish in the center, and sort of a green background of the universe, I guess because the universe is slightly green. We also see a number of objects in the screen. I take it those are like stations and ships?
Yes. Right now we're looking at a ship that is moving. We have a highlighted ship. There's a kind of an entity view where you see information about it. And we can click on other objects, such as stations. Objects that I own, I can issue commands to. I can just issue the construction command and the progress. You see the construction progress, and then the entity pops up in the system. Then I can control that entity from there on out. There's all sorts of functionality that you can leverage. And again, this is just one view on the universe.
Right, yeah. And so if someone wanted to build what's like right now, you have a Stargate, you have a station, you've got resources inside the station, I guess, that you can trade. That's part of the game, I guess, or whatever the simulation is you're doing. What language would you be building, like another entity, like maybe like the planet killer from Star Trek Classic? What would you have to do to create that?
Well, that would be a player-controlled entity assembly. Even if it's not a human player, it could be an NPC player that you have an external server running bots that are controlling non-user controlled players. And now, if you want to implement that through make that kind of be a special type of ship, then you can just leverage all the ship mechanisms and then just have a new ship type that, in the web view, in the web front end, just is rendered using a different template. So all that would involve is just kind of customizing a few different things, or you could even change the existing web config to use whichever template you want, and then you wouldn't have to do any server config. So that is very reusable. If you wanted to add a kind of a whole new class of entity that kind of has its own logic as far as operations and what it can and can't do, then you would add a new class to the manufactured subsystem. And what that is the subsystem responsible for player control entities and loot and essentially user modifiable stuff.
Now, if I wanted a non-player character, could I run those scripts on my side, or would I have to have the server run them somewhere?
You can run them anywhere.
Oh, really? Cool. So I could actually, yes. I could have a web display, but also have like a command line area where I would be, running some scripts or something that I could manage and operate on. Cool.
So let me show you the ncurses interface.
Oh, yeah. All we could see was just a bunch of text there for those people. You're not missing much at home again.
So I just switched over to a command line, and I now have access to the simulation from the command line. So I'm in a checkout of the Omega project, and I'm running ruby-ilib, and that just includes the lib directory in the Ruby include path, including all the modules for Omega. /bin util, and then I'm going to do Omega monitor. This is the ncurses monitoring interface.
Okay.
And it might take a second. And then there it is. You see the galaxies, you see users. These will periodically be refreshed. And, I have a script that, there's a small bug, failed test should be in red, but, that hooks, that will pick up tests, and this is automatically hooked and rendered. So, if you have specific functionality that you want to ensure is going on with a bot, you can make sure that's happening.
So this is all the excitement of a board game, except it does the computations for you.
Except that you can run it anywhere over a SSH terminal, or you can have your universe, and anyways.
Move my ship to B5. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's all sorts of commands that you can run right from the command line. This gives you Omega status, gives you stats about the server. There's an interactive interface, a command line prompt based on Pry. Pry is an interactive Ruby terminal, kind of like IRB, but relatively newer. It has all sorts of features, and I kind of wrote the logic to kind of glue it, implement commands to allow you to query the interface, the universe in real time, so that you can play the game right from the command line.
So Mo, why don't you show us back to the graphics interface and play around with it a little bit? And Nico, I've got a couple questions for you while that's going on, so we can do it that way. So, Nico, what have you been contributing to the project so far, and what has it taught you in making this happen? I mean, what are you learning from this?
Well, so far, I've been working on both the server and the client interface. I think that one of the main aspects I learned is that programming a game or a simulation means you have to use math. So for those who are studying engineering or whatever, and you think that calculus or algebra, that learning that makes no sense, okay, think again, because if you develop a game, you're gonna have to use that a lot. So one of the features I've worked on is the fact that you can now click a ship and it'll automatically go there instead of having to go through the menu and find it on the drop-down list. So other features have been bug fixes, changes on making the logo more friendly, things like that. I think that as far as programming goes, one of the main things I've learned, and anyone who contributes to the project can also learn, is that how you can get a very complex project like this and divide it into modules and still make it easier to contribute to it, to develop, to fix bugs. So one of the main things I've learned is, as I said, the architectural part of the project.
Cool. And the user interface is not documented anywhere. I mean, just the basics of logging in are, but I have no idea. I think I finally figured out that scroll up and scroll down was zoom in and zoom out, but I don't know how to, and the arrows seem to move me laterally to the ship. Are there some other commands? I mean, I think people are going to try this right after they hear this show. So are you going to document that, please, in the wiki or something? How do you actually interface with the UI?
Well, we are going to do that probably on the, kind of tutorial maybe, like an interactive tutorial is on the to-do, and that would be cool to do. But so far the movement commands are quite easy. You can just click and use your mouse to rotate around the view. If you hold the right-click button, then you can move sideways.
Oh, I didn't find that. Okay.
So,
see, I wouldn't have known that. You say it's simple, but you already know it. That's what I'm saying. Just write those down in the wiki, okay? Because otherwise we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get you right.
It's obvious. It's intuitively obvious, only because I've been working on the project for 6 years.
Yeah.
And what are some of the most...
Yeah, there's a lot of items on the to-do list for sure. But yeah, as far as interface, I mean, these things are things that we've just really finally been nailing down. The project being worked on for 6 years, I mean, this incantation of the project, this version is about 3 years old. As a whole, I tried, version of C++ and Java, and before kind of playing around with different things before kind of settling on this. So, it's definitely a work in progress. We're definitely going to take the feedback and, from today and any that we get off after the show, and, work hard to incorporate it. And, it's a labor of love for sure. If anyone has additional feedback, we would love to hear it. I mean, tutorial is definitely a great idea.
So, Mo, I have a question though. I tried using your simulator on my machine, but it didn't quite work. So I'm guessing you're using something like WebGL to, actually render on the web browser.
Yes, we are using WebGL via 3.js. 3.js is a very extensible, it's new, but it's seemed to be gaining quite a bit of popularity. It's a library which it kind of exposes all that, exposes kind of common 3D operations that you would find in a framework along those lines, and it was provided. It is just a really great way to use those 3D capabilities very easily.
So what about performance? Is the frame rate limited by the server, or is it limited by the client side?
Well, as with everything, if there are issues, just throw more hardware at it, right? No, I'm just kidding. The issues shouldn't be. From my playing around with things, and I don't see there being any major bottlenecks. Obviously, if you have less, not as intense, resources are an issue if they're constrained, then you can run fewer systems. You can reduce the strain on the server very easily. Whereas, it should be able to scale. And because of the core nature of the protocol, the json-rpc, and all the primary data types are able to be serialized and unserialized from JSON, then we can easily migrate that and port that to, if a user is kind of starts running the project on their own instances, and then want to expand to the cloud, the quote unquote cloud, or some other solution, they should be easily able to do that. Speaking from data migration and kind of data perspective, right now, our project doesn't interface with any database, whether like a SQL database or an LDAP database or whatnot for users, but that stuff can be easily tied in. It's a very lightweight project. It's meant to be integrated into many systems and to specify very few dependencies. So in those situations that performance might be an issue, it should scale well. It can also, the dependencies are lightweight because of that, but it can be easily interfaced with some other external data store or whatnot if the user so wants.
So we're almost out of time, but I do have a couple more interesting questions, or at least I hope they're interesting. I'll be the judge of that. Well, yeah, it's my question. So JSON-rPC, you're using this as sort of the interface layer. How does it detect the protocol that's coming in and just fork off to the right protocol manager?
As far as the transport protocol?
Yeah.
Yes. So Omega depends on RJR, which is the Ruby JSON RPC library, which depends on Event Machine. Event Machine has multiple interfaces for TCP, for AMQP, for WebSockets, and so on and so forth. And that essentially just listens for events on those. Once those events received, it serializes them, makes sure everything's nice and safe and sane, and then hands it off to the users, the method that the user registered to handle that event. And in our case, in RJR's case, it's just a JSON RPC dispatcher. It will, figure out what method the user is registered to satisfy that, set up the environment, and a couple other things. RJR allows us to add in additional fields such as like a session ID and so on and so forth. Obviously, invoke that over a secure transport. If you're passing a session ID around, I wouldn't want to pass that around in clear, use over HTTPS or SSL. But then it just goes on up to Omega. So, from Omega's perspective, it's all transport agnostic. RJR does expose attributes and variables which specify the transport the request came in on, and Omega can use that to filter. So certain operations they require a persistent connection, and you can't invoke those operations over HTTP, for example. You need to invoke them over TCP, over a WebSocket, or so on and so forth. So stuff like location tracking.
And what's the overall context of this project? Is this going to be a labor of love forever, or are you hoping to somehow commercialize this, or something in between?
Wow, that's a good question. You know, I don't have any plans to commercialize it. You know, if people want to make money on it with it and are motivated by money, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. You know, it's interesting. The AGPL, I briefly touched upon this before. You know, I think free software licenses are perfect for some things. Some things require, you know, MIT and other licenses. So, you know, there are the RJR libraries licensed under the Apache license, so anyone can use that, or any other JSON-rpc interface to interface with the server by whatever client of their choosing. So, you know, it's the future, you know, the future will bring what it'll bring, right? So I'm just, you know, I've been having a blast working on it. You know, myself, same with Nico, you know, I've been learning a lot as far as these, you know, groundbreaking technologies. So I'm just going to be continuing on it. All goes according to plan.
Cool, cool. And I have a couple of final questions I tend to ask people. Actually, we'll start with Nico. Nico, what haven't we asked that you want to make sure people know about this project?
Well, maybe the barrier that a potential contributor will have to the project. Sometimes when you start developing for a free software project, you know, you are scared that your commits are frowned upon, or there's a big learning barrier. But in this particular project, I think that's very important to know that you can easily contributing. As I said, since the project is so modular, and since we have a almost 90% test coverage, so if you break something, we are probably going to know and let you know friendly that you've done so. So that's one of the good points that we haven't discussed. That's test coverage, which, as I said, is quite good, especially for an open source project.
Well, that's an accomplishment, definitely, for sure. And I have a couple more stock questions, and I might as well stay with Nico here to ask these. So what is your favorite scripting language? I bet I know.
Well, right now, it's obviously Ruby. Yeah. I've been working with Ruby since last year, and I love it. Not only as a scripting language, but also for you know, developing web applications, like in the Rails framework. So far, I had only worked with Java, C#, you know, standard statically typed languages, and I love the flexibility that Ruby offers.
And also, yeah, and Ruby, of course, I appreciate people when they actually say Ruby, because Ruby is sort of the bastard child of Perl and Smalltalk, my other two favorite languages. So I don't have any problems with people saying Ruby. That's kind of a nice thing. Actually, it's a great prototype for Perl 6. So Perl 6, a lot of things were actually taken from Ruby. One more question for you, and then I'll get back over to Mo for a second. What's your favorite text editor?
Well, I don't really have a favorite text editor. I'm okay with Gedit, you know, that's GNOME's standard editor, but I also use Kate, which is KDE1. I'm not a Beam user or Emacs. I'm not okay with those, but I'll use any text editor which has, you know, basic syntax highlighting, search with regex, you know, that sort of stuff. As long as they have the basic, you know, programming tools, and they're free, which is of course a must. I mean, free as in open source, right? I'll be fine with them.
Cool. And Mo, same three questions, but I'll ask anyway. Is there anything we've left out that you want to make sure our audience is aware of?
Yeah, I kind of want people to leave people with a kind of a vision. You know, it's this project. You know, imagine a a network of these simulations running on many different nodes over the internet, where people can kind of express the vision of their artistic vision or their vision of their own universe, of what they want, to whom they want, how they want. Not only that, but people can come and go and kind of consume these kind of this data that they've been given access to, kind of aggregated or filtered in certain different ways, however they want to see it. Because just because someone is presenting something a certain way, you should be able to consume it via another way. That's at a kind of general level. At a specific level, picture these epic space battles with all sorts of sci-fi fandoms, all sorts of universes, everything scaling up from the universe down to the planets. That's what we're going for, and it should be possible with this. So we would love, if people are interested, just shout out, and I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'll have all the links on the website when we're all finished here. And also, again, the other two questions. The first question would be favorite scripting language.
There are no absolutes. I love Ruby, so I'll just stick with that.
Okay, that's simple enough. And then also the favorite text editor.
Going with Vim on that one. I love it.
Non-Emacs guy. All of us Emacs people are just dying out. That's what's happening. There's nobody left. Everybody's going to the Vim, man. Well, it's funny though.
Yeah, it's just software, right? It's just software as abstraction, and it's for the human. So it's really up to the human how they want to interface with the machine.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great having you guys on. And like I said, probably in the middle of the show, I'll probably say it again at the end of the show, there was definitely some interesting visuals on this thing. And also the link we're going to put in the show notes will take you right to a live working simulator so you can actually play with it, actually register. Actually, a number of people in the chat group also actually did that. So thanks for setting that up. And thanks for being on the show, both of you guys.
No,
appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Great, cool. That was Mo Morsi and Nico Satrang. I'll never get it. Satragno. There we go. Satragno. There we go. That's close to that. Well, Guillermo, what do you think?
Well, I'm actually excited. I'm a big space buff myself, so I'm probably gonna have to get another machine to play with it a little and create my own Star Trek mixed universe with Star Wars and maybe Battlestar Galactica in there.
Cool, nice. And this is an ambitious project to take on because there's so much simulating the universe. There's like so many pieces that are all flying to make it all happen. It obviously still sounds like a small team. So if you want to get in on the ground floor of something that may actually turn out to be very interesting over time, not that it's not interesting now, but that's slightly rude. I guess maybe my problem with it is that I'm here now at a place that is 300 megabit and it slowly loaded. And I was trying to do it for my hotel, which has only like 6 megabit, and it was almost impossible. I thought it was actually broken because I sat there for like 4 minutes. So whatever is happening to go to your screen, it's taking a long time. So anybody who has a slow connection, if you're on dial-up, forget this game. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. If you don't have anything, it's at least 10 megabit. You might not get the most pleasant experience from the thing. But go ahead and look at the GitHub, and we'll have links to all that in the show notes, and play around with it. Anything else before we start wrapping up, Guillermo?
Well, not really. I would invite people to check out the GitHub, and especially if you want to learn a little bit about HTML5. And besides that, it looks like a really fun project.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool. And, so not so much of a commercial entry here, but that's okay. I mean, we like to have non-commercial things, labors of love. Those are always handy. I mean, I know I've had a few over the years as well. So let's talk about upcoming guests for a moment. And that's not even an awkward transition, even though I typically do an awkward transition there. It's just simply me saying we're going to talk about upcoming guests. Next week, we have Genevi, which is automotive open source software. So, all that in-dash stuff that we now have to manage, your CD, what people still use CD players, MP3 players, your cell phone, your Bluetooth, all that stuff. Well, they're building an open source platform for that, which means that instead of manufacturers building it all proprietary and having them all work differently, we can start actually, flattening that out. So it'll be kind of cool. Immediately after that, we finally nailed it down. Nginx, the high-performance web server, originally just a proxy, but now a full-blown web server. The fastest web server in the world, they claim. I believe them because it's all single process. So a single thread, single process, does it all by doing I/O operations and whatever it is. Anyway, it's magic. We'll have them talk about that anyway. Right after that, we have the Go language. That's a board. I already said language. I already blew away the joke. So the Go is a language from Google. That's similar to the Node.js space, where we have a server that has multi-threads and real high performance, things like that. We just added to the schedule Hydra. Hydra is a distributed data processing and storage system. There's a number of people playing in that space, but we now have a new one, a new open source one. The thing about Hydra is instead of requiring something like what is it, Hive on top of the big file system, whatever the things that Google came up with. Hydra will actually do data analysis just on a CSV file. So you don't even need all that magic stuff. Now, if you want to scale, obviously, and have 10,000 CSV files, you're going to have to put it into some distributed data system. But it scales apparently in both directions to that. Coded in Java, unfortunately, but I guess things have to be every once in a while. Koros comes after that. That's Linux for massive server deployments. That's all I know about it. That was right on the front page of their homepage. Not quite yet scheduled. Still waiting for them to return an email to me to tell me what date they want. GNU Health. GNU Health won an award a couple years ago. RMS himself handed the award to them. It's basically an open source hospital management system. So top to bottom, like medical records, billing, all sorts of things like that. Everything you need to run a hospital. Turns out the country, Jamaica's a country. The country of Jamaica, that might be just an island, is totally committed to this. The whole government level is actually migrating all of their existing proprietary software over to GNU Health, as I understand it. Of course, we'll have them on to get that all answered. We have a bunch more people on the short list. If you go to twit.tv/floss, you'll see our spreadsheet linked from there, which tells you everything you need to know about the upcoming guests. Well, the ones that we're trying to get on the show anyway. If you have a project that's not on that list and you want them to be on the show, just have the project leader email me, merlin@stonehenge.com. This is how almost everybody in the last 2 years has been, 4 years, boy, it's been a long time, has gotten on the show. It's by emailing me. Project lead email me. So we had you can follow us on Floss Weekly on Google+. I post there so we add new guests, and I also post there just before the show airs so we can let people know that there's a live show. There actually is a live show. Some of the people are actually giving questions in our chat room today, which is really handy. We're taping typically 8:30 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays, GMT -8 in the winter, GMT -7 in the summer. So you can check us out there. You can follow me at Merlin, MERLYN, on Twitter. You can also follow me, more likely, you'll see a lot more things from me on Google+, Randall L. Schwartz on Google+. In fact, you go to plus.google.com/Randall L. Schwartz, all one word. You actually go right to my page. I have just been interviewed for linuxvoice.com, which is a brand new podcast. You'll get that interview about a half hour or so in one of their upcoming shows. Ben Everhard did the interview with me. Or Everard, not Everhard. I keep putting an H in there. And he's going to let me know when the show actually airs. But go check that out. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hour long Linux news show. So similar, I guess, in some ways to our own Dan's Linux News. What the hell is the name of his show? Oh, he's going to kill me for that. Linux Weekly? No. Oh, no. I don't remember Dan's show. Oh, well, anyway, he'll get me out now. You can, what is it? Oh, Linux Outlaws. I was close. Linux Outlaws. There we go. I am speaking and at SoCal Linux Expo. Still got a few weeks to come over for that. It starts, I think it's mid-February sometime. And I'm also representing Floss Weekly there. That is enough plugging for me. Guillermo, what do you want to plug today?
To scale, to see you, they might as well go see my talk too. I'm doing a talk on my Marshmallow game engine, which is my new project. And it's also a game console based on the Raspberry Pi. So if you like all that open hardware and, video games and consoles, go check that out.
Cool. So I guess I'll see you at Scale then. That'll be cool.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. I remember we shared some good drinks there the last time in the bar track. That was one of the best tracks. One of the best tracks. They have the hallway track and they also have the bar track. And the bar track's not a bad thing at all. Okay, great. Well, Guillermo, I think you passed. I'm pretty sure you passed because I'm the one that judges that. So we should be seeing you on future shows as time permits for you and as the schedule rotates around for me. So welcome back to the show.
Yay.
Very cool.
I'm happy.
Very cool.
Happy to be back. Happy to be back.
And thank you for hosting today's show, co-hosting today's show. That was really nice of you.
No problem, man. Anytime.
All right. All right, good. And as I typically say, watch me flub this one too. As I typically say here at the end of the show, we'll see you again next week on Floss Weekly.